Hello there. In this video we're going to discuss how to represent data in a variety of ways using Microsoft Excel. In particular, we're going to be looking at scatter plots, histograms, frequency distributions, relatively frequency distributions, pie charts, and box plots. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is to illustrate how to do a box scatter plot in Excel. So the first thing I'm going to do is generate a set of bivariate data. So let's talk about, say, data X, and let's talk about, say, data Y. So this could be a column of temperatures and a column of pressures at a particular instance of time. So I'm just going to create a bunch of random data. Let's do a random number between, let's say 1 and 100. And let's do this for a set of values, say 20 values. And let's also do it for a Y as well. So a thing about the random number generator in Excel is every time you edit the sheet, the random numbers will change. So what I want to do is I'm going to copy these numbers, and then I'm going to delete them, and then I'm going to, I can't delete them yet. So I'm going to delete them and then paste the values over here. Then I'm going to delete the random number generated portion, and then bring these numbers back over here. So now I have a list of random numbers. Alright, so to do a scatter plot of this data, you can select these first two columns, go up here to Insert, and then go here to Enter Scatter Plot. And this is our data. So this is data Y versus data X. And that's my scatter plot. So what you can do is you can go to Format Chart area, and you should have some little design characteristics in case you are interested in modifying some of these things. So one thing I am going to do is I'm going to add some chart elements, namely some axes titles. So I'm going to look at the primary horizontal axis. You should call this, say, I don't know, X values or pressure, and I'm also going to name the vertical axis as well. So I'm going to call this the Y values. So always make sure when you're constructing a scatter plot, you should have all of the axes labeled, and also the data table should be labeled as well. Okay, cool. So that is my scatter plot. Oh, where'd my Y values go? There we go. So the next thing I'm going to do is a histogram. And let's do a histogram for, say, the set of Y values. So I'm going to create some classes. So class minimum and class maximum. So upper and lower bounds. So I'm going to call this the class from 0 to 10. No, I'm not going to really name them. So this is going to be the 0 to 10. Actually 9.9, less than 10. And then this is going to be 10 to 20. And then I'm going to add 10 consecutively. And I'm going to go all the way up to 90. And I'm going to do the same for this column as well. So plus 10. Cool. So these are my classes. Some people call them bins. So I'm going to count all the numbers between 0 and 10, but I'm not going to be including 10. So all of these intervals are, say, bracket and parentheses. So this is the structure that I'm building here. So frequency. So I'm going to count, and I'm going to have two criteria, so count ifs. So I'm going to count all the values in this that are, so I'm going to say greater than or equal to the number here, and all the numbers that are less than the number here. Oh, wait a minute. All right, so let's fix this. So I want to count all the values in my X column that satisfy the following criteria. So I want it to be greater than or equal to the number on the left, and I want it to be greater than the value, Excel wants to fight me today, greater than or equal to the value located at this cell. And for the same exact data, so I'm going to select it again, I want it to also be less than the value located at this cell. So this should count on the numbers in column A that are between 0 and 10 once I press enter. So there are no values in this column that satisfy that, so it should give me a value of 0. So with this in mind, these ranges also are not going to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to anchor them because they're going to be the same for all of my class values. All right, so I'm going to click and drag that down. And for this last cell, I'm actually going to make a slight modification. I want it to be less than or equal to the upper bound of 100 as well. So I'm going to sum up all these frequencies, and I should have 20, which I do. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a frequency histogram for my data X values. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to make a class name. So I'm going to call this the 0, this is the 0 to 10 category. This is the 10 to, okay, that's nice. So that pretty much fills in all the patterns. That's really clever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plot a histogram of these two. So I'm going to go here to insert, then I'm going to go over here to insert bar or column. Now notice that there are two types. There's a statistics and a bar chart. You may want to figure out what the difference is. So then I'm going to do this, and this is my frequency histogram. That's my frequency histogram. And again, make sure you label your horizontal axes and your vertical axes. So my vertical axes, primary vertical, so this is going to be my frequencies. I'm going to add an axis title on my horizontal as well. My X value classes. And that is my frequency histogram for X in particular. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a relative frequency. So I'm going to take all of these frequencies and I'm going to divide by the total frequency here. And keep in mind the total frequency is not going to change from this position, so I'm going to anchor it, and then I'm going to drag that down. So again, I'm going to select my class and select my relative frequency and insert a bar graph. So this is my relative frequency histogram for data X. Similar, as before, my horizontal axis is going to be my X value classes. And my vertical axis is going to be my relative frequency, which tells you the percentage of those frequencies relative to the entire distribution. And you can change your colors here if you don't like that color distribution. You know, that's all about preference. So another way you can represent relative frequencies is via a pie chart, since you're talking about, you know, parts with respect to a whole. So just going to insert to the pie and donut chart area, you should see something like that. So this is a relative frequency pie chart for X values. So in terms of labels, since, you know, if you have a lot of colors, this might be a little messy. So what you can do is you can click any section, right click, and go to add data labels. So you can do, say, add data labels, which is going to put numbers, which is a little bit cluttered. You probably don't want that. You know, it sort of depends what you need. But data callouts probably are the most common things. It didn't add all of them, which is kind of depressing. Oh, okay. Let's select them all. There we go. So add data labels. I don't know why I only selected one. There we go. That selects all of them. Now, of course, when the graph is small, it might try to compress these little boxes. And there's more fancier things in terms of size and stuff that can sort of fix all these things for you. So it's just, you know, amount of how much time you want to devote to this to make it look exactly like you want. But again, it's all about personal preference. So another type of distribution that is really common is what is called a cumulative frequency distribution, which adds up the distribution values as you move along the classes. So I'm going to let this value be equal to the current frequency, which is 0. So this is going to be equal to the previous frequency plus the next frequency in line. So this is going to be 0 plus 2, then it's going to be 2 plus 3, then that value plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, plus 5, plus 1, plus 2, and that should go all the way down to 20. So I'm going to graph my class and my cumulative frequency distribution, and this is going to be the graph of my cumulative frequency distribution for X values. And a common property of cumulative frequency distributions is that this curve should always be increasing as you move from left to right. Now, in terms of box plot values, you can select this data and go to Insert, and there should be an option. Let's see if we can find it here. There it is. So if you click this thing, then that will insert the box plot values. We can add data labels again. We can do add data labels. So this is going to be quartile 0, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, quartile 4, and this value right here, maybe it's hard to see. This is the value of the mean of the data set. So we have the median and the mean of the data set, and then you can determine whether it's skewed left or skewed right. Also, if we just select columns A and column B and attempt to insert a box and whisker plot, it will do the box and whisker plot for both data X and data Y, and then you can sort of compare the dispersion and the central tendency sort of in one graph for a box plot. And of course, label these boxes, add labels, add a chart title, and so on. But this is just some basics in terms of how to construct certain types of display styles for your data, whether it be a set of ordinal data or bivariate data or organized cluster data. Sort of depends on what you're sort of going for, on which graph you should use, but this should give you some insights on the things that you can do in Excel.